Her music. When we first take a look at Mr. Wilson's nose, it's like opening a window into how our skin really works. Right away, you can see the pores are dotted with blackheads and a few stubborn whiteheads. At first glance, they just look like little dark freckles or tiny bumps on the skin, but they're much more than that. Each one is essentially a miniature plug, a mix of oil from the sebaceous glands, dead skin cells that didn't quite shed away, and keratin, the same protein that makes up your hair and nails. These aren't simply surface blemishes. They're small cylinders that begin deep inside the pore and grow upward, almost like a cork sitting in a bottle. What makes blackheads fascinating is how they tell a story about the skin's activity underneath. When oil and dead cells accumulate, the pore opening stays open to the air. Oxygen reacts with the keratin and sebum, turning them darker, the black color we see on the surface. That's why blackheads differ from whiteheads. Whiteheads are closed off under a thin layer of skin so the contents stay pale. In Mr. Wilson's case, his skin has larger pores thanks to chronic redness and thickening, making it easier for debris to collect. When you look closely at the nose, you'll notice how uniform these plugs can be, almost like little grains of rice hidden under the surface. It's one of the reasons watching blackhead extractions is so satisfying. You're not just seeing something pop out, you're actually watching the contents of the pore release after sitting there for days or even weeks. This also explains why some blackheads come out easily with gentle pressure while others are more stubborn, they're anchored deeper or more compacted. So, from this first look, we're not only seeing clogged pores but also a snapshot of how the skin naturally tries to shed and renew itself. Understanding what's under the surface makes the extraction process feel less like a mystery and more like a carefully guided clean up. It's the first step in bringing the skin back to a healthier, smoother state. Her music. Beneath the surface of Mr. Wilson's skin, there's a whole little world at work. Each pore has a sebaceous gland tucked just below the surface. These glands are constantly producing sebum, our skin's natural oil, which is meant to keep the skin soft, flexible, and protected. But when production goes into overdrive or dead skin cells aren't shedding as efficiently, that oil and debris start to mix together inside the pore. Instead of flowing out smoothly, it forms a thickened plug. This is the very beginning of a blackhead. What makes blackheads different from pimples is the pore opening. In a blackhead, the opening stays open, allowing oxygen from the air to reach the trapped material. That oxygen reacts with the keratin and sebum, turning them darker, almost like an apple slice browning after being cut. So the black dot we see on the surface is just the exposed tip of a much larger plug underneath. The bulk of it sits below the skin, shaped like a tiny cylinder, filling the follicle from bottom to top. Mr. Wilson's skin offers a textbook example of how this happens. Because of rosacea and rhinophyma, his skin has become thicker over time and his pores have stretched. Larger pores act like small containers waiting to be filled. More surface area means more oil and keratin can collect, and more room for a plug to develop. When you look at the nose under magnification, you can see how these plugs aren't just dots, but little casts of the pore itself. This process explains why blackheads can keep coming back even after extractions. If the underlying oil production and skin turnover remain the same, the pores will simply refill. It's also why ongoing care, like gentle exfoliation, retinoids, and oil management, is crucial to maintaining clear skin. By addressing what's happening under the surface, you're not just clearing the visible blackhead, but also reducing the chance of it forming again. Understanding the anatomy and chemistry inside the pore helps make the extraction process more effective and keeps the skin healthier in the long run. Music. This is the moment everyone waits for. The extraction itself. With gloved hands and the right tools, gentle and steady pressure is applied to the sides of each pore. The goal is to push evenly from below so the contents rise up and out without damaging the surrounding skin. When done properly, it's almost like unsealing a cork. The plug releases in one smooth motion. Some blackheads glide out easily with a single squeeze, while others take a bit more coaxing, especially if they've been sitting deeper or have hardened over time. The color and texture of what comes out can tell a lot about how long it's been there. Older, darker plugs tend to be firmer because they've been exposed to air longer and the oils have oxidized. Fresher ones are softer, lighter in color, and sometimes almost creamy in consistency. Watching them emerge is fascinating because you're literally seeing the imprint of the pore, tiny cylinders of keratin and oil that once filled the follicle completely. As each blackhead is removed, the pore that held it becomes open and free again. This allows the skin to recover and makes it easier for natural oils to flow normally instead of becoming trapped. It's not just about appearance. Removing these plugs can help prevent irritation, inflammation, and even secondary breakouts in the same area. Gentle technique is key. Pressing too hard or digging too deep can lead to trauma, which is why medical professionals take their time working pore by pore to protect the surrounding tissue. Another satisfying aspect of extraction is the immediate visual change. Skin that looked bumpy and congested starts to appear smoother and clearer as each plug is lifted out. The nose, which may have been dotted with dark specks, and begins to look cleaner and less congested almost instantly. This moment is rewarding both for the patient and the professional, a real-time transformation you can see right before your eyes. By respecting the skin and using patience, the extraction process not only removes what's clogging the pores, but also sets the stage for better healing and ongoing care, keeping those pores clearer for longer. Even after a thorough cleaning, pores can start filling back up surprisingly quickly. The skin is always producing oil, and cells are constantly shedding. When the pores are larger and more dilated, like in Mr. Wilson's case due to rosacea and rhinophyma, they act almost like tiny containers. More space means more oil and keratin can collect before anything even appears on the surface. This is why people with thicker or oilier skin often see blackheads return sooner, even when they've been professionally extracted. When the skin has thickened over time, the follicle walls can stretch and lose some of their natural elasticity. This makes them stay open and wide, so debris can enter and settle more easily. Think of it as a funnel. Oil flows in, mixes with dead cells, and slowly builds a plug, without ongoing maintenance. Those plugs eventually darken and harden, recreating the same cycle over and over again. This isn't a sign that extractions don't work, and it's simply the skin's biology doing its job and the environment inside the pores inviting material to collect. This is why consistent skincare matters so much. Gentle exfoliation helps lift away dead cells before they can clump with oil. Topical retinoids or ingredients like salicylic acid can encourage cell turnover and keep pores clearer between visits. Regular facials or dermatology appointments give professionals a chance to remove deeper plugs before they become larger or inflamed. All of these steps work together to manage, not eliminate, the tendency toward blackheads. Blackheads themselves aren't dangerous, but they're signals. They tell you how your skin is functioning, how much oil it's producing, and how effectively it's shedding old cells. By treating the cause as well as the symptom, you can extend the time between extractions and keep the skin looking healthier. Ongoing care doesn't just clear what you see on the surface. It also strengthens the pore lining, smooths the skin's texture, and reduces the likelihood of new plugs forming. Understanding this cycle helps make the process less frustrating and gives you a plan for keeping those pores under control over the long term. What we're really seeing here goes far beyond the surface. Each tiny black dot on the skin represents a miniature story of how pores function. Inside every follicle is a small environment where oil, dead cells, and keratin collect over time. As the skin produces sebum and sheds old cells, that mixture can form a plug that slowly fills the pore. Because the opening is exposed to air, oxygen darkens the top of the plug, turning it into the classic blackhead visible on the surface. But most of the material is hidden beneath, shaped like a thin cylinder stretching deep inside the pore. Watching these blackheads emerge under gentle pressure is satisfying because you're seeing the entire contents of the pore release in one smooth motion. It's like lifting out a cast of the follicle itself, giving an instant look at what's been sitting there unseen. This isn't just a cosmetic procedure, it's a lesson in anatomy and skin science. Each extraction shows how the body naturally tries to cleanse itself and what happens when that process slows or becomes overwhelmed. Understanding what's happening under the skin changes the way you think about skincare. Instead of seeing blackheads as isolated blemishes, you begin to view them as a sign of how actively your skin is producing oil and how efficiently it's shedding cells. That's why prevention and maintenance are just as important as extraction. Using ingredients like retinoids, salicylic acid, or gentle exfoliants can keep the pores clearer between treatments and regular cleansing helps reduce buildup before it becomes visible. The real benefit of clearing blackheads isn't only the immediate improvement in appearance, but also the long-term health of the skin. Open, clean pores allow natural oils to flow normally, reducing the risk of irritation or inflammation. Over time, consistent care can minimize pore stretching, smooth skin texture, and even reduce the frequency of blackhead formation. Watching these extractions gives a clear window into how your skin works and why proper routines matter. Seeing the science in action makes it easier to appreciate that every little plug you remove today is a step toward healthier, better functioning skin tomorrow.